Hello and welcome to our webinar about ADHD and ADD. My name is Rebecca Vosper. I'm a resource consultant team leader with Children's Inclusion Support Services. I'm delighted that you've joined us. I hope that you will get the information you need about attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder and attention deficit disorder. So what exactly is ADHD? ADHD is the short form for attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. It's a term associated with children and adults who have a neurodevelopmental disorder that shows a persistent pattern of inattention and/or impulsivity and hyperactivity. Then this video is a short clip about ADHD.
Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, is a condition that causes both kids and adults to be easily distracted, fidgety, and impulsive. What looks on the surface like a behavioral problem is actually a brain disorder that affects both the structure and function of the brain. Research has found that the brains of people with ADHD are smaller in certain areas, especially in the frontal lobe, affecting impulse control, concentration, and inhibition. Brain development is also slower in people with ADHD. The neural pathways don't connect and mature at the same rate, making it harder to pay attention and focus. This can impair executive function, which handles organization and routine tasks. ADHD impacts brain chemistry too. People with ADHD may have problems processing dopamine, a chemical linked to movement, sleep, attention, and learning. ADHD can be tricky to diagnose and challenging to manage, but there are treatments that can help. Consult with a doctor for all your questions about ADHD.
What does ADHD look like? The symptoms of hyperactivity and impulsivity need to be present for at least 6 months, and they need to be there to the extent that they are disruptive and inappropriate to the person's developmental level. Children with ADHD often have a difficult time remaining seated in situations where they're expected to. They often run about or climb in situations where it's inappropriate to run about or climb, and they're often unable to play or take part in leisure activities quietly. They're often described as the children who are always on the go and acting as if they're driven by a motor. They're the kinds of kids who talk excessively or blurt out the answer for questions that haven't even been asked yet. They often have trouble waiting for their turns, and they're the kinds of kids who will often butt in on conversations or butt in on games. In the next video clip, you will be introduced to Miley and her super energy. Miley is a child with ADHD. Have a listen and a look to see what you can see.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to make you angry.
Oh, you're the meanest in the world. You almost broke my car.
He was just playing. Last time, you liked it when we pretended to have car accidents?
I don't like you anymore either. I never want to play with you again.
My, what's going on, friends?
Oh, Julian is really mean. He crashed into my car.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to play.
Miley, let's take a little break, please. Can you tell me how you feel?
I'm angry.
You're angry? I understand. I want to help you. What do you need, Miley?
I need to be alone.
Thanks for sharing your need. I invite you to go to the small relaxation room and take a large glass of cold water. Huh? We'll talk to you later.
Leila, why does Miley get angry sometimes?
We don't understand. Last time, we played cars this way, and she didn't lose her temper.
Did you notice that Miley has trouble concentrating?
Yes, she always looks everywhere. Yeah, she looks often distracted.
Well, Miley has lots of ideas in her head. She reacts really quickly to everything that's happening around her. Oh, it's a great quality. She has a lot of energy in her body, and because of that super energy, Miley's very creative. But sometimes she has trouble controlling her super energy. So she has trouble staying still or focusing or controlling her emotions.
I understand. Sometimes I so have trouble controlling my emotions. I also have trouble focusing sometimes.
Well, it happens to Miley more often than others. But that's why we love her, because she's super energetic. She has ADHD.
ADH what?
ADHD.
I don't know what that means.
ADHD means Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder.
Wow! That definition's complicated. I prefer to say super energetic, like superhero who have superpower.
That's also a good definition. It's true that Miley's super energy is like having a superpower.
Hey, friends. I'm sorry for before.
We forgive you. Leila explained to us that there was super energy in your body, and sometimes it's so strong you have trouble controlling it.
It's true. There's lots of energy in my body.
We are happy to have a friend who has superpowers. You're like a superhero.
I didn't see it like that.
Good job, Miley, for taking the time to apologize. And thank you, friends, for taking the time to understand Miley's super energy.
I have the best friends in the entire world.
Group hug, everyone.
What is ADD? ADD stands for Attention Deficit Disorder. It too is a neurodevelopmental disorder that shows a persistent pattern, this time of inattention. In this particular video clip, you will find it very confusing, and this is really like a simulation of what it might be like to have attention deficit disorder or attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. Watch this video clip and try to answer the questions that they pose at the end. Good luck! So what does ADD look like? Like ADHD, the symptoms of inattention have to have been present for at least 6 months, and again, they are inappropriate to the developmental level of the person. These children often have difficulty paying very close attention to details, and they often make careless mistakes in their schoolwork, at work, or with other activities. They have trouble holding attention on tasks and play activities, and they often seem like they're not listening when they're spoken to directly. These children have difficulty following through on instructions. They might lose focus or get sidetracked. They have difficulty organizing tasks and activities. They often avoid, dislike, or are reluctant to do tasks that require a lot of mental attention over a long period of time, like schoolwork or homework. They often lose things necessary for tasks and activities. They might misplace their school materials or their pencils or books, lose library books, that kind of thing. They are easily distracted, and sometimes they appear quite forgetful in daily activities. ADHD is not a problem of willpower, and it's not a problem of parenting. It's not a problem of lack of motivation or lack of intelligence or education. It's not about laziness. It's not about the child not wanting to do well. We really need to start by focusing on skill development as opposed to the challenging behavior of the child, so that the child can be provided an opportunity to learn. A child diagnosed with ADHD can pay attention or sit still when there's novelty, when the task that they're doing is something that's new to them or interesting to them. They can pay attention and sit still when they're doing an activity that's really, really interesting to them. They also can pay attention and sit still when they're provided with close proximity support by an adult. That means the adult needs to be nearby to reassure them and to help them stay on task. They can do very, very well when there's adult engagement. Children diagnosed with ADHD also can use their energy in a very positive way when they're motivated to do so. They can be very creative, and they can learn new skills when they are taught them. Children diagnosed with ADHD are individuals with their own strengths and their own challenges that differ from others. For school-age children with ADHD or ADD, well, you might find that these children struggle in school and in social situations. They may be anxious, suffering from depression. They may be impulsive, and they may show patterns of academic frustration and failure. They are often socially rejected by others. They can become irritable and sullen, and they may develop a conduct disorder. Very often they also suffer from low self-esteem. Sometimes, when a child appears to be inattentive, it is not due to ADD or ADHD. These symptoms could be caused by other underlying factors, for example, chronic anxiety or an undiagnosed learning disorder. A worrisome or painful situation at home might look like inattention. The child might be bullied on the playground, and that could look like inattention. A child might be embarrassed by a situation and go to great lengths to keep it secret. All of these things can look like inattention. If a child is fidgeting when they're supposed to be reading, the child might be hiding his or her difficulty with the reading. Dyslexia can cause a lot of frustration, and sometimes children will look like they don't care or they're not paying attention, when really what they're trying to do is mask the fact that it's difficult for them to read. When you're working with any child, a child with ADHD, a child with ADD, any old child, the first step that you want to take is to connect with that child and to connect with the child's family. The strategies that we're about to suggest will only be helpful if there's a strong connection with the child and the child's family. Part of your role is that of providing support for the family of the child. You can do this by empathizing and being sensitive to where they're at in their journey. You can respect the choices of the family and be aware of where they're at in the cycle of grief after the diagnosis, if indeed they do get a diagnosis of ADD or ADHD. You can also be available to support the family in any way possible, or any practical way possible. Support for the child with ADHD may involve a couple of things. It may involve skill development, understanding the child's behavior, and understanding the prescribed medication. The main focus in the child care program should be on prevention and skill development. Positive behavior support might include collecting data, which could determine the functions of the child's behavior and also determine the best combination of prevention and behavior reduction strategies. Medication, of course, is only to be recommended by a medical expert and only when agreed upon by the family. It's sometimes good to be aware of the potential side effects of the medication, and hopefully the child's parent will be able to explain this to you. Of course, there are many categories of skills that can be developed. There's executive functioning skills, which is a set of mental processes that help connect past experience with present action. People use these kinds of skills to perform tasks like planning and organizing, strategizing, paying attention to and remembering all kinds of details, and managing time and space. All of those are executive functioning skills. Language processing skills, on the other hand, refer to the way that humans use words to communicate ideas and feelings, and how such communications are processed and understood. Thus, it's about how the brain creates and understands language. Most recent theories consider this a process carried out entirely by and inside the brain. Emotional regulation skills involve recognizing, managing, and naming emotions. Cognitive flexibility skills, on the other hand, can be described as the mental ability to switch between thinking about two different concepts and to think about multiple concepts simultaneously. Social skills are the kinds of skills facilitating interaction and communication with others. Social roles and relationships are created, communicated, and changed in verbal and nonverbal ways. The process of learning such skills is called socialization. This information may or may not be new to you. On this page, you will see a whole list of things that are considered to be executive functioning skills, like handling transitions, shifting from one activity to another, stopping a play activity or a task, doing tasks that require sustained attention. All these things might be very tricky for children who have ADHD or ADD. Doing things in a logical sequence is an executive functioning skill. Understanding the sense of time, that's another one. Acting on multiple thoughts or ideas, ignoring non-relevant stimuli. How easy is it for you to not listen to me tapping on the table when I'm tapping on the table? For some children, this is very, very difficult to do. Thinking before responding is another executive functioning skill. Considering the likely outcomes or the consequences of one's actions. Very, very difficult for some children to do, especially if they are having difficulty with this area. On this slide, you will see that we have listed many key strategies that can be used to encourage executive functioning skills. Positive reinforcement increases the likelihood that a behavior will occur again. Things like a smile of encouragement, a thumbs up, a high five, or just a simple phrase to reinforce what the child is doing. All of those sorts of things can be used to encourage executive functioning skills. Replacement behaviors teach the child an alternative behavior to meet the same need of the behavior that we want to replace. Telling a child what to do rather than not what to do is a good way of encouraging the child to do exactly what we want them to do. Giving precise and clear instructions and breaking these instructions down into small achievable steps is another thing that we can do to promote executive functioning skills. Using verbal and nonverbal cues, such as gestures and other visuals, can also encourage executive functioning skills. Proximity support is the fancy name for having a teacher or an educator close by to provide the kind of support and encouragement that a child needs. Predictable rules and predictable expectations and routines are on the list of key strategies. Minimal transitions and always having transitional warnings, like 5-minute warning, a 2-minute warning, a 1-minute warning before transitions. Those are all ways of supporting children to develop the executive functioning skills that they need to get along with others. Attention cues, such as ringing a bell or flashing the lights or gently tapping the child on the shoulder, those are ways of getting the child's attention, and those also help to teach children executive functioning skills. A self-check list can be helpful, as can social scripts, rather, to teach certain expectations. Language processing skills refers to the way we use words to communicate ideas and feelings, and how such communications are processed and understood. It's about how we understand what is being said, how we express our needs and our thoughts in words, and how we identify and articulate what's bothering ourselves. It's how we express our concerns. So how do we promote these sorts of skills in the children that we support who have ADHD and ADD? On this slide, you will find a list of key strategies that can be used to promote language processing skills. The first on the list is minimizing distraction prior to giving instruction. To me, it makes perfect sense that before you actually tell a child what to do or give a child an instruction about what he or she should be doing, it's important to make the environment quieter, get the child's attention, block out other distractions so that it's more likely that the child will be able to pay attention. You'll notice that some of the strategies on this list are the same as for executive functioning skills. Positive reinforcement is also important to be used to promote language processing skills, as is replacing the behaviors. So if a child is trying to get your attention, for example, you could give the child or teach the child to use a specific way of getting the attention that would be more appropriate. Providing clear and precise instruction is very helpful for children with ADHD and ADD. Being close to them to support them, like the educator in the picture, is another key strategy to promote language processing skill. It's harder to promote language skills from across the room or across the yard. Visual supports also can be very, very effective in promoting language processing skills. If a child can see what you're talking about, even after you've talked about it and you no longer are talking, the child has more of a chance of knowing what you were talking about and what your expectations are. When we talk about emotional regulation skills, we're talking about identifying emotions. Emotions like fear and anger and sadness, happiness, embarrassment, those sorts of things. You need to have language and to have experience with those emotions to be able to identify them. Another emotional regulation skill is managing your emotions. What do you do when you're feeling really sad? How can you make that more appropriate? What can you do when you're feeling angry? Well, how do you manage your anxiety? How do you use calm down strategies? These sorts of strategies can be taught to help children who are very, very angry or very, very anxious. Another emotional regulation skills is developing a positive self-confidence and positive self-esteem. On this slide, we have listed some key strategies to encourage emotional regulation skills. Positive reinforcement and replacement behaviors are on this list. The use of empathy and empathetic statements is something that you may or may not be familiar with. If we are truly able to show a child by what we say and what we do that we really understand where they're at, we're more likely to connect with that child and to help that child with their emotional regulation. Providing choices is sometimes very helpful for promoting emotional regulation skills. Helper jobs can also be a good strategy to use. If a child knows that they have a role to play, be that watering the plants, wiping the tables, helping to hold the dustbin, those kinds of helper jobs can be used to help a child keep it together and to learn how to manage their emotions. Relaxation techniques is another key strategy for promoting emotional regulation skills. Teaching a child what they can do when they're feeling anxious, or counting to 10 when they're feeling angry. Those sorts of things can be helpful. Creating a calm down area with lots of visuals to support calming strategies is something that we really recommend. And for some children, social scripts with a real recipe for how to calm down and what to expect might be a supportive way of encouraging emotional regulation skills. What are cognitive flexibility skills? Cognitive flexibility is what you need in order to be able to see the grays in situations and to be comfortable with iffy thinking, to not see everything in black and white and the way we've always done things. Cognitive flexibility skills are necessary for kids to be able to handle when we change up the rules or change up the routines and do things differently. We need cognitive flexibility skills to be able to handle unpredictability. What do we do when we don't know what's going to happen, or what to do when something does happen? We need cognitive flexibility skills to be able to shift from original ideas or solutions to come up with different ideas and different solutions. And sometimes we need them to adapt to changes in the plan or to adapt to new rules and new ways of doing things. Sometimes we need cognitive flexibility skills to interpret information accurately, especially if we didn't understand what was being said in the first place. The key strategies for encouraging cognitive flexibility skills, again, positive reinforcement and replacement behaviors are right up there. Empathy, the use of empathetic statements, telling a child what to do, not what not to do, using clear and precise instructions. Sometimes another key strategy might be to use a child interest inventory so that you know what it is that the child is really interested in, and you can use that information to help motivate them and to help keep them motivated. Conditional statements are also very helpful for these children who need help with cognitive flexibility. Things like, maybe we'll go on a walk, or sometimes we go on a walk, but not always, or we might be able to do that instead of we will be able to do that. Those sorts of statements help children realize that it's not always going to be the way that they expect it to be. And ultimately, those kinds of statements help children develop cognitive flexibility skills. Social skills are any skills that facilitate interaction and communication with others. On the list of social skills is the ability to start conversations. It's a skill to be able to start a conversation with someone you've never met before, or with someone that you haven't talked to recently, or with someone you've never seen or interacted with before. Entering groups is also a social skill. How do we know when it's our turn to talk? How do we know when it's our turn to take a turn in a particular situation? There are lots of social skills to be learned, such as how to start a conversation, how to enter a group of children when they're already playing, how to get positive attention from others, how to empathize with others, and how to make friends and play cooperatively, how to solve problems. All of these are social skills that need to be developed in all children, not just the children with ADHD or ADD. When you look over the key strategies to promote social skills, you will notice some of the same strategies that we have recommended to promote other kinds of skills. Positive reinforcement can keep a child motivated. It can increase the likelihood that what you want them to do will happen again, and it can help a child make the link between what that you're using to reinforce them and the behavior and the outcome. For example, if a child wants to join in play and learns to ask to play, that might be a more positive way and a more appropriate way to up their chances to get to play with a child and to be successful when they are playing. Replacement behaviors. When we teach a child an alternative behavior to obtain what they want, they can use this behavior to be more successful, or potentially to be more successful in getting what they want. For example, if a child wants a particular toy and we teach them to ask for the toy rather than to grab the toy from others, they may be more likely to have a positive interaction and to have a positive experience in gaining that toy. Empathy is on the list of key strategies. Using empathetic statements acknowledges and validates a child's feelings and helps a child to learn to express his or her own emotions and to relate positively to others. A child needs to know how he or she is feeling before he or she can recognize how others are feeling. We as adults can be helping children form friendships. This may involve figuring out who's available to play, who else is interested in playing with, dolls or with blocks or with puzzles, and who might be an appropriate person to choose when looking for a playmate. For example, the child who isn't already playing or the child who particularly likes to do that activity. We can also teach children how to be reciprocal when forming friendships. I do this for you, you do this for me. As an adult, we can facilitate positive interactions with other adults and with peers. We can help kids know when it's their turn to play, for example, when they're using a board game, and we can help identify whose turn it is and that sort of thing. When we use a buddy system, we can be pairing a child up with someone who has stronger social skills or stronger communication skills that can help the child become more socially able to interact positively. If we're offering support for conflict resolution, We're helping children to identify what happened and identify what the possible solutions to the problem might be before actually choosing a solution to work on. Children with ADHD and ADD have many, many positive attributes. They are the children with lots and lots of energy. They are often the children who get along very well with adults. They often can do several things at once, and they can be extremely spontaneous and a lot of fun to be with. They can see details that other people miss, and they often volunteer to help others. They are very often very creative and imaginative children, and they can be very courageous and charming and warm and loving. If you have any other questions, you're welcome to go to our CISS resource library. You can also find a lot of information about ADHD and ADD at the Center for ADHD Awareness. There is a particular organization called ADHD Families that can also provide lots of information, and our newsletter frequently has lots of information in it that may be of support to you. So before finishing up this webinar, I'd like you to complete the quiz in order to receive your certificate. Thanks very much for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your day.